Hi, happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to Inside Sports Talk with your host, Joanna Roselli. I am today running solo. Fortunately, my co host, Ed Cole, will not be able to join us today. But I do have a lot of sports to go ahead and bring to you, sports news to talk about to you. And just want to go ahead and kick it off with MLB. We do have the postseason right around the corner. I want to go ahead and chime in a little bit about the WNBA as well. Talk a little bit of NFL. So we'll just step a little bit into each one of those, and if time permits, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more sports and maybe add some football talk in there, some soccer, and see where this takes us. So if you're ready for that, let's go ahead and dive in on this beautiful Saturday morning or afternoon to you, depending on which side of the coast you are on. But let's go ahead and launch off with some MLB talk. We have the postseason, like I mentioned, just right there, neck on neck with teams fighting it off for a berth to the postseason. The wild card race is very tight. And especially in the American League, we do have two teams in the National League who have now clinched a spot in the playoffs, and that with that being the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're still fighting it out and dueling it out there with what is going to be their standing once the season does conclude. Um, but we do have a race in the in the National League still, with Milwaukee still, if the season would end today, they would go ahead and clinch that playoff spot there in the East with the Atlanta Braves. Um, and as we are recapping here and looking ahead into the postseason, I do have my special guest joining me here. It is Keith Pompey, our 76ers source here with the NBA, our beat writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer. How are you, Keith? Thank you for joining me this beautiful Saturday morning or afternoon for you out in the East Coast.
It's good. I feel like it's the morning, like you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm good.
Right.
How you doing? You doing well?
Good. Enjoying my little Nespresso here. That I had to, get a little bit of kick in before getting started this morning.
Okay, okay. Well, that's good.
So, but yes, we have a lot happening here today with talking sports, and just kicked it off with the MLB postseason. Want to touch on that a little bit because we have a really tight race here. Not in the National League league, sorry, national. And then we also have the American League, who is even tighter. Right now we have a three-way race, specifically in the wild card. How have you been following that recently?
you know,
And
I,
seeing what that race is going to look like?
kind of, sort of. Yeah, I have. It's weird. Like what I try to do is I try to shut everything down like a week before the season starts. So I haven't. But then I'm like, oh wow, wow, they won. Oh, they won. Oh, they lost. You know what I mean? So yeah, yeah. Who's impressing you?
Right now, I'm really impressed with the New York Yankees because I was not really expecting them to make it as far as they have in turning that season around. Because we know the Yankees have not had the best of the seasons this season, and thinking, okay, well, that's it for them, and they're not going to make it to a postseason spot. But that somehow they've been able to turn it around. So they've impressed me, but also Toronto, the Blue Jays, and Robbie Ray, just phenomenal, and how he's been able to execute, not only him but also as a team. Seems like they just put something together there, and they have something very special. Which right now they are half a game behind New York Yankees, which then in turn half a game behind Boston in that wild card race. So this is a three-way race that can go any which way. But we also have Oakland A's, who are 2.5 games behind Boston, and we have Seattle, who's 3.5. So that has been a little bit of a, a battle there this week, because we had Boston and Seattle earlier in the week, dueling that out, and then we've have wins and losses, and that has totally shifted this all the way around. But those for me have been the most I've been the most impressed with so far, at least leading up to this postseason race.
Yeah, can I say, like, the one thing that gets me is, like, when you talk about the East champs, right? If the season would end, talking about the American League, if the East season would end it now, they would say Tampa Bay would be that team, right? But then you look at it, like, three of the teams you talked about, like Toronto. Well, one team we didn't mention was Boston. Toronto, Boston, the Yankees. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, it really is, because the good thing about it is we're talking about, like, rivalries too. Teams that don't like each other. And I think that brings a lot of intrigue, with that. And the one thing I like about the Toronto team, and also, Boston to an extent nowadays, this is like modern baseball. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of international stars. Like, before, there used to be international stars from, different, ethnic groups, but it was kind of like they were on certain teams, or it was one of those things where they didn't get marketed as much as they do now. And so I think that you have, like, a lot of people just rooting for these guys, and people really are they're more acceptive of some of these players are showboaters. And before, there was a time you're like, no, you can't do that in baseball. Nowadays, people are like, well, that's part of some of these guys, their culture, or where they come from. So it's becoming more accepted, you know what I mean, by the younger generation and stuff like that. And it makes baseball, to me, more exciting, So those are some of the things that I like to see, you know.
Yeah, and baseball has become more exciting in that aspect, and we've seen how baseball has just changed the game, the way that it's played. Um, one of the other teams that has really impressed me and didn't expect to have such a quick change has been the Chicago White Sox, our
Yeah,
beloved PLR, a good friend,
yeah,
who is, and by no means shy in expressing his favoritism for the Chicago White Sox. But Tony La Russa has done a phenomenal job
yeah,
there. We know, the impact he has and has had previously in Major League Baseball, in a team, and how far he's been able to go ahead and take those teams previously to a World Series. So I do, round of applause for Tony, and see how, I'm really intrigued to see how far the Chicago White Sox will make it this postseason.
yeah. Me too. Me too. Now, the one thing is, the one team that, when we talk about baseball, you always look at me like, oh man, the Houston Rockets are in first. Like, the Houston Rockets are a team. I mean, not the Rockets. I'm sorry, Houston Astros.
Astros, yes.
Yeah, the Houston Astros. So it's like, you look around and you see them, and they're doing stuff, but you're kind of like, are they still cheating? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's one of,
Right.
yeah. So I'm not. I don't know. I know that happened a couple seasons ago, but and they are a good baseball team. I mean, if they weren't a good baseball team, they wouldn't be among one of the best, right? But it's also one of those things that whenever you see them, and you see how when they're successful, they're like the best team in the West. It's one of those things where you're saying to yourself, like, but you guys kind of cheated a couple years ago. It's just crazy.
Right. That's one of the things. And I was actually speaking about this with on my previous podcast, Punto Deportivo, or Spanish speaking sports podcast with Marco Peralta, which we just wrapped up here a few minutes ago. And it was exactly just that, how Houston was able to go ahead, and how they were not successful, and how they were losing for for a long time, and not going to the playoffs. And now how when Hinch came in, was able to go ahead and build that team, and put those tools together in a young Altuve and a young Correa, which then brought them to being the Houston Astros they are today. and being able to go ahead and go to continuous playoffs and then go ahead and being able to win a World Series championship. But then we have the scandal, the cheating scandal that occurred, like you mentioned, Keith, a
Mhm.
couple of seasons ago, and now it's just always is that's going to be in the back of your mind is like, okay, are they cheating? Is this legitimate? And there's not going to be an easy way to go ahead and get past this, especially for many, not only as fans, but also players. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's always going to be a question, or at least for some time, that's going to remain in the back, back of your head. Is like, okay, is this legitimate? And did they pull this off, clean or dirty?
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
it's true. It's true. But one thing I will say about baseball, and we talked about it before, and I said that I'm one of those guys who I don't like watching it on TV just because I like being in the stadium. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's the best fan friendly sport. And sometimes you lose some of the excitement, sometimes, depending on who the announcer is. But
Mm-hmm.
this time of year, we're getting ready to get into October. And this is when I think it goes to an all time, high, right? But there's one rivalry that I love, and I say that's one of the best rivalries of all sports. And that rival to me is the San Francisco Giants against the Dodgers, right? I mean, we think about it. One
Mm-hmm.
was the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the other one was the New York Giants, and they were rivalries back then. And they both moved to the West Coast, and they continued that rivalry. So to me, I like looking at that race right there. I mean, I like looking at seeing what's going on in the National League West, where you know San Francisco clinched the playoff berth, right? And then you look at it, the Dodgers clinched the wild card berth. So, it to me, that rivalry, I mean, I put that on par with, let's say in the East Coast, we always talk about North Carolina and Duke. You talk about
Yeah.
this and that. Now, I know though Duke has won national championships the whole nine, but to me, that's one of the best rivalries in all of sports, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's definitely a gem right there with the Giants and the Dodgers being, their origin. But from one of my rivalries that I'm looking forward to and battling this out, if both teams make it and clinch a wild card spot, or even seeing them maybe even both dueling it out in a playoff game or wild card game, which is on one of our other favorites, especially in the East Coast rivalries, as are the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, because we see them during the regular season, especially in September, and but it's another notch seeing them in a wild card or in a postseason game. So that's going to be very cardiac. I think I'm going to have 911 on speed dial if that does happen. My friend and I were joking about it that this is going to be a roller coaster of emotions, not only in the postseason but leading up to the postseason in these next couple of weeks. And once we go in there, we know how those emotions, they are energetic, emotions fly high. So Keith, please have 911 on speed dial if you do not hear from me for some time.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially watching this Boston Red Sox and Yankees duel here.
yeah.
But
That's a
you were
great
going
one.
to say,
Yeah, what I was going to say is, see, and that's the thing. Like, I love that rivalry too, but let's keep it real. There's an East Coast bias, right? And I think that again, that is one of the all time great rivalries. But I think that a lot of people in the East Coast, and I'm from the East Coast, you're from the West Coast, but a lot of the people in the East Coast, we forget about like teams out west until the World Series comes around
mm,
or like the championship series comes around, right? And I just think personally, again, the rivalry you said is up there. It might be the greatest rivalry of all time, especially based off of when you go to the history where Babe Ruth started at, where he ended his career at, and you look at the championships that the Yankees, I mean, the Yankees are like the equivalent of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Dallas Cowboys all combined, and that's the Yankees, right? And then the Boston Red Sox are their nemesis. It's one of those things. But the thing I like about the Dodgers, because if you go to LA and you go there and everyone's talking about the Lakers, but they're really talking about the Dodgers. You know what I mean? It's like it's flip
Yeah.
flop who's number one. And then you go to San Francisco and the success that they had. They had guys, Willie Mays. They had Bobby Barry and Bobby Bonds. I mean, they had all these great players, and even up a couple of years ago, they were the best team at one point. So that's one of those rivalries. I think that a lot of people don't talk about it the way they should on the East Coast. They just don't. Maybe the
Yeah.
game's in late or what have you. But I mean, let's go back to Tommy Lasorda or guys like that.
Mm.
Um, Reggie Jackson. I mean, all these guys. He was a Yankee, but he was also played for the Dodgers. So it's one of those things that people just. I feel like where I'm at, we don't give it, and here in New Jersey, we don't give it enough praise when you look at it, and the Dodgers are the team right about now. You know.
Yeah, they are, and yeah, I think you are right, Keith, and yeah, you do have a time difference. It's a 3 hour right now with between the East Coast and the West Coast, so that sometimes you could miss out on some of those games or don't capture them all the way through because it can be a game here that ends at 9 o'clock. So and over there, and, just talking end times over there, it would be midnight, sometimes 1 in the morning,
Mhm.
or could go into 2 in the morning, depending on you know the time it starts and ends. But yeah, I do totally agree with you in that sense. But with the Los Angeles Dodgers, just going back to that, is right now they are in the eye of many of us fans and even media, and they are trying to obtain a title, back to back World Series title, and that's the major question in hand. And is it going to be, is it possible? It's possible. Are they going to be able to go ahead and do it? And is it going to happen? That's the question that remains. And they do have all the tools. They do have what it takes and to make that happen. Um, but yeah, we're really looking forward to that postseason fight here in the National League West, and it's one of the National League West, one of the toughest divisions, and not only throughout the season but also in the postseason, and seeing those outcomes and how they come about.
Yep. Yep. We'll see.
Um, But I do want to go ahead and deviate this to some NBA and WNBA talk. Take advantage of having you on the show and talk some more about that, and giving us a little bit of the download of what's happening there in Philadelphia as well. More specifically, I want to go ahead and just kick this off. So, should we run out of time, would be with the Ben Simmons uh, situation there, and being able to give us some insight in how that's going. What are some takeaways there that we can take from?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the latest is, Ben Simmons said he wasn't going to report to training camp. He said that he no longer wants to be at 76ers. The Sixers have came back and said, hey, look, we expect him to show up. And if he doesn't show up, we're going to find him. So now you have everyone and their mom like, yo, should we go outside the practice facility and see if Ben walks in the building or not? And we'll see if how much money they're going to find him. So that's the latest. And you're right. It really impacts this really impacts the Eastern Conference right now. And what I mean by that is, the 76ers, were a team who had the Eastern Conference best record last year. They lost to the Atlanta Hawks. They were upset. Um, People thought that team was a championship caliber squad. Now you look at the Brooklyn Nets. They're coming into the season healthy. You look at the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that won the championship,
Mhm.
and then you see where teams like Miami Heat, the Chicago Bulls, the Boston Celtics, they all made upgrades to their rosters. And then you look at a Sixers team that's unable to trade a guy. So you have to say that they are going to trade him, but the way you're waiting around to see, well, how long is the trade going to take? Are they going to be able to get a player of Ben Simmons, quote unquote, caliber that's going to be able to make them go deep in the playoffs? And how long is it going to take for this team to gel after they make a trade? So it's really, in my opinion, their inability to trade them has really set the 76ers back. They're behind other teams who are, quote unquote, contenders in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and I think you're reading my mind, Keith, because that you just ended with a question that I want to go ahead and so we'll ask. And um, how this is affecting the Philadelphia 76ers with Ben Simmons' situation. Um, and not only right now, because right now we're in that, those practices, preseason, in that phase, the season's going to kick off here soon. How that's affecting them, how it will affect them going into the season. Is it going to be a major or minor impact? And then also, is Ben Simmons at risk of maybe not, even playing? You said he's like not wanting to report to practice, to camp and whatnot. And, the attention is going elsewhere instead of the team, the organization focusing to practice and, be effective and being focused on the season. Right now, the attention is being drawn to Ben Simmons. And is he going to play? Is he going to join? Now, is he, maybe at risk? You mentioned a possible trade, but it doesn't seem that that could probably be going anywhere, could or could not, but him being fine if he doesn't participate and maybe at risk of not even playing for the season at all.
Yeah. I think what it is a major distraction. Like everything you said, it sums it all up. It's a major distraction. The problem is, you know, people should be talking about year two under Doc Rivers and year
Mm-hmm.
two under Daryl Morey, right? But instead, we're all talking about, is Ben Simmons going to be fined? Is he ever going to show up? This and that. And can you imagine, like, they're going to go into media day next Monday, not this week, but the following Monday. They're going to go into media day, and everyone's going to be asked about Ben Simmons. Hey, where's Ben? Have you spoken to Ben? Da da da. This and that. Everyone, and that is going to, like, everyone, they're going to say, like, oh, we're fine, we're good. No, you don't want to answer questions about Ben Simmons. You don't. And so, to me, I don't know if I don't expect him to sit out the entire season, because I don't expect him to be on their roster, right? I expect them at some point to trade him, right? I thought maybe it could happen. Maybe, who knows? It probably will. It could happen this upcoming week. Who knows? But I don't expect this guy to be on the roster long term, because as much as the 76ers are saying they're willing to find him, they're not going to trade him, they don't want this distraction. And part of the reason where this is a bigger deal than anywhere else, than it would have been, is because you look at the 76ers timeline, right? Joel Embiid is in the prime of his career. Yes, he signed a 4-year, $196 million extension, right? So he'll be on the team for 6 years. But this guy is in the prime of his career right now. The time to put all chips in the deck or on the table is now. And the longer you have, or the discussion is worrying about when Ben Simmons is coming back, all that does is taken away from what is a season that's very important for Joel Embiid, was very important for the Sixers. So you're right. It's going to be a circus, a crazy thing. And with that being said, I can't see this guy being here long term. I can't. Even if they say we're all cool now and we all get along, well, you gotta figure that with his limitations, they still going to want to get rid of him. They're still going to want to get someone else. So yeah, it's a big circus right here in Philadelphia right now.
Yeah, and then you touched on something too is with Doc Rivers, second season as a coach with the 76ers and what was able to do and turn the team around, getting those tools, and evolving the players and putting them in a playoff situation and and it's taken away of the team continuing that momentum that they had and where they ended the season and going moving forward and bringing that to this season as they kick off and yeah it's being all of this is being a major distraction and unfortunately and especially with the impact that Doc Rivers has had on not only on the players on the organization and even in just Philadelphia alone.
Yeah, yeah, it is. On in Philadelphia and alone. Well, the people here right now don't want Ben Simmons here. They don't like. Oh my god! Like people are saying like, oh my god, you mean he's coming back? Stuff like that. Which is is a little disappointing. And and then the thing about it is one thing. Talk about Doc Rivers. You know, we're talking about a guy who he won a championship in 2008. He he sent and then he went back to the championship a couple years later, with the late excuse me, Boston Celtics. He made it to the conference finals. But since he's been in the Clippers, he's had a lot of second round exits. So, last year wasn't exactly good for his resume, so to speak. Like you have the team with the best record in the Eastern Conference, and you lose to the Atlanta Hawks in 7 games. So there is some of that pressure on him this year for him to produce, for him to have a winner. And what's going to happen is, let's just say, they can't get somebody in return that's as good as Ben. You're dealing with this circus, you're dealing with all that. All people are going to say, they're not going to say, well, it took them forever to get rid of Ben. They're going to say, well, if Doc doesn't get out of the second round, Doc Rivers had another season where he didn't get out of the second round. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, I'm not saying it's all about his legacy because he is an NBA champion coach who coached a lot of Hall of Famers, but is also what have you done for me lately? Instead of him focusing on let's see if we can go make a deep playoff run. The focus is on is it Ben Simmons coming back or not? So yeah, it's not good for the team. Not good for Doc, not good for Daryl, not good for Joel. Heck, it's not even good for the equipment manager because he doesn't even know whose name to put on the back of the jersey and what number to right about now. You know?
Yeah, you do have a good point because you have to know, okay, who's in, who's out, and what the heck do I do?
Exactly. Exactly.
uh, but let's go ahead and move this conversation forward. And I want to go ahead and ask about and see how you see the Phoenix Suns. You mentioned Milwaukee, and
Mhm.
they became they're the champs, the NBA champs here for this last season. We had the Phoenix Suns in the playoff, and dueling it out and having that fight against the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Phoenix Suns were able to go ahead and retain Chris Paul, which really was not a surprise and was expected, even though you still were on some certain uncertainties on there. But how do you see the Phoenix Suns going into, this coming season, and do we see them making maybe another run to the NBA Finals once again? Because there's potential. They have the tools that we saw how they evolved, not only from the previous season to this last season here, from the bubble to the NBA Finals. Unfortunately, they came up short, but they also evolved during that transgression of the season and the playoffs to the finals. So, what do you see in this team going into this season, upcoming season, Keith?
You know, I like it. I kind of like what the Phoenix Suns did. I mean, let's face it, they re-signed Chris Paul, right? They added some nice reserves or role players, types. The guys that I like who they added is Landry Shamet, JaVale McGee. These are good guys who can help you. And Alfred Payton's guys like that. See, here's the thing. If I'm Monty Williams, I'm happy because I don't have to motivate my guys. And what I mean by that is it's like the Phoenix Suns, they lost in the finals, but no one was really talking about them last year about being in the finals, right? No one
Mhm.
gave them any respect. It wasn't about them. So what happens is you win, you bring back Chris Paul, you bring in some veteran role players who can help your bench. You already got the starting lineup, but now you're deeper now, and no one's talking about you. Everyone's talking about the Lakers. They're talking about other teams, but if you're Monty, it's kind of like, whoa. I know we lost 4 games in a row in the playoffs, but excuse me, but was last year a mirage or something? Like no one's talking about them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's like, and what we're talking about, you still have two of the best players in the league, and you have a young center. And not on, and the reason why I think the JaVale McGee pickup is huge is because now you have a veteran guy who's like sometimes you can get a big, it could be a bad big to get because they're more accomplished than like extending their career and like secretly hating on the star. But what he can do is he can say, look, this is what you do. I'm gonna critique your game while you're playing. When you come to the bench, let me tell you this. And Landry Shamet, I'm telling you, he can shoot. He can shoot. He just needed to find a home. He just always been one of those trade trips, free agency, whatever. But he can shoot. I honestly think that, this team is going to do better than what most people think. They're way young. They got young talent, and now they have an influx of veterans who can help nurture this young team. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
again, am I right? It just seems like doesn't it seem like everyone's talking about the Lakers and they're not talking about the
It
Suns?
definitely does. And you just
Yeah.
like hit a nail on the head there, Keith. I totally agree with, even going back to last season, like you mentioned, no one gave them credit. No one gave them the attention and or even the saying, hey, there's potential here. They're gonna make it to, possibly to the playoffs, at least minimum. Like no one expected for them until they saw who they really are, going to the finals. But it was at that time is a little bit too late for that and giving them the praise when you should have seen this as they were building. Because come on, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, just to name a
Hmm.
couple of those players, that they have, not to include Crowder, not to, and all of these other amazing, the amazing team that they have. And but I think yes, they are not getting the attention, you know, after being in the NBA finals, yes, coming short, unfortunately losing those games in a row, 4 games. Everyone's talking about, we just talked about it, Ben Simmons situation. We were talking about LeBron and the Lakers and the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, and everything else, Luka and Dallas and in so many other things, and not, acknowledging Phoenix Suns. Hey, they are a team to be reckoned with, and not getting the attention. But I think that's actually going to work to their advantage, much as it probably did last season, and it's going to fuel them, it's going to light a fire under them and be like, hey, you're just, in a way, it's a little bit of a disrespect. I think, you're
A
not
little bit
giving
of
us,
major disrespect.
credit. and and seeing what we've done, Monty Williams, I think he should have, in my opinion, and to me, he's the coach of the year.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that he did not gain that, but to them, he's a extraordinary coach, and he's been able to, do so many things, not only him but also with James Jones. So I think, that's gonna be a benefit to them, and being, hey, this is what we're about. You're not talking about us. That's okay. you're gonna see this, and this is what we're gonna do, and there's probably gonna have a little bit of a repeat of what was last season, and I think they do have the potential to possibly even make it hope for the NBA Finals once again, and hopefully they're able to at least sometime soon, if it's not this season coming up, be able to be called NBA champs.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I mean, we look at it. The Lakers. The one thing we don't know about the Lakers is they acquired a couple alpha dogs, and LeBron James is an alpha dog. And the biggest question is, well, how is all that going to work? You know what I mean? How
Mhm.
is that going to work? Another question mark is that when they have a lot of, you could say, future Hall of Famers, a lot of former All Stars. But my biggest thing is they're also now, again, they're going to be a good team, but they got to make sure that they're a healthy team. Because if they get a couple injuries and your bones aren't as sturdy as they were when you're in your 20s. So if they get a couple injuries, that could disrupt what they're trying to do. You understand? So,
Yeah.
like, but when you look at the Phoenix Suns, I mean, it's basically the core is back. And then, like we said, they brought in some new ones, new guys to go with that. So they're not going to have chemistry issues. They're not. They don't. We're not trying to see as well. Can Devin Booker and Chris Paul play together? We don't have that question when it comes down to the Phoenix Suns. So, I really like their chances. And again, if I'm Monty, I'm excited that no one's talking about me because you don't have to bring them down. Like,
Mm.
coach, don't worry about it. This is easy. We're going to crush everyone. Nah, they feel like you said disrespected. The only thing I disagree with is you said a little disrespected. I'm saying it's this disrespect is major. Like it's like huge. You know what I mean? So I think that will motivate the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. And I like what you said before we move on. I know you'll have to go here shortly, and I want to talk a little bit WNBA. The season's
Hmm.
about to wrap up, and the postseason for them is about to kick off. But before we do that, you did mention alpha dogs,
Hmm.
Lakers. So that's is one of the things that I have also, you know, brought into consideration and have noticed is that you sometimes, and we've seen it, can run into a little bit of a conflict when you have more than one alpha dog in a team,
Hmm.
and that can be, and I believe will be, a challenge for the Lakers, and that can probably more possibly cost them.
Yeah, it could because what's going to happen is like everyone says. Here's the thing. You know, everyone said that when James Harden and played with Russell Westbrook, that they were the best of friends, right? But then we later find out that pairing didn't work out, you know. And I'm not blaming anyone, but we find out that pairing didn't work out. It's I think it's hard sometimes when you are that guy and then you're no longer that guy, or you want to do certain things, but there's somebody else telling you to do it another way. Now, the one thing is, from what I hear, that most of these guys that came in are all hard workers. LeBron James is a hard worker, right? So they're not going to have a problem there. But, you know, if they get into a rough stretch and guys are sacrificing their game, but then they get into a rough stretch, then all of a sudden that's when you start hearing stuff about, look, man, we're gonna have to start doing it my way, in order for us to get better. Like if the coach is gonna have to do this, other guys on the team are gonna have to let me play the way I normally play. And that's something that you have to be careful of, because of that. You have to be careful because, the coach has a tough spot because he's managing a lot of egos now, a lot of egos.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in a tough spot. I mean, think about it. Carmelo. you know, he's later on. Well, you know, everything's changed for him, so to speak. But the last, couple of years, because he was out of, like, he was injured. I mean, he was with Houston, then he left, and then he came back, a different role. But for the most part, a lot of these guys, and even him beforehand, they're all used to being that guy. They all became that guy, and now it's like you guys have to defer. LeBron is that guy. And how are you
Mhm.
guys going to be able to deal with it? Because let's face it, and I'm not saying this is how LeBron feels, but this is how people think. When they win, it's because of LeBron. When they lose, it's because of his teammates. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
are y'all ready for that? Are y'all ready for that? You know?
Yeah, I don't think they are, and that's definitely what I will be looking at as the season kicks off and moves. We go throughout the season with the Lakers, and like you said, that's a lot of Eagles to manage. Never, it does not come easy.
Not at all. Not at all.
But now moving on to the WNBA, we have here just a game or two left to play for these women, amazing women. They're kick ass, pardon the language, and very excited. And I'm really particularly excited for our Phoenix Mercury, trying to potentially bring under what I would believe it's a fourth championship home here to the Valley. But we there right now. Let's see. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, Keith. Um,
Mhm.
so we have the postseason here kicking off. It just actually what Thursday, I believe, and we still
Mhm.
have some seeds that are left to know what where they're going to seed. Maybe battling that out and maybe having another a game there to see who goes where. But what is a team that has impressed you leading to the postseason? Because I know it has been a tough battle and it hasn't come easy. I know the New York Liberty are still trying to, secure a spot in the playoffs for these women. Do you think that's going to be a possibility? I think there's two spots, if I remember correctly, that are still left open, and who's that's up for grabs, and who's going to take that?
Yeah, they can. I mean, I don't know because the problem with the Liberty, they're good, right? Good team, but they finished like they're 2-8 in their last 10 games, so that kind of like hurt them a little bit. They're like on a slide, right? The team that I'm the most impressed with, and I'm a front runner right now, so I'm gonna admit to it, is the Sun. You know what I mean? Like the Sun is what 25-6. They won their like last 10 games. Now, some people may say, well, they're playing in the East. I know they're the best team, but they're playing in the East. And when you look at it, like the Sky is the second best team in the East, and they're the sixth best team overall, right? Like there's no team in the East besides the Sun that's 10-0 the last 10 games that has a winning record. That's crazy. So you look at the West. So like you say the Sun impressed you. But the thing about it is, I don't know if it's because it's in Vegas or something. And I know they come on television a lot. Like the Aces actually come on TV a lot. And I enjoy watching them play, right? And, you say to yourself, they're 23-8. They won 8 of their last 10 games. Minnesota is Minnesota. They're 21-10. You know, Phoenix 19-12. The Storm is 21-11. Like all of those teams are good. And then we're talking about Diana Taurasi. She comes back. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like right now I'm looking at this team. If I was a gambler, I'm not a gambler, but if I was, I mean, I think I would have to like put some money on. I would want to see what Diana's like, but I would have to put some money on that team to do some damage because, I mean, we're talking about 8-2 the last 10 games. That team's been on fire, So that's the thing that basically impresses me, and I'm telling you, like this is good basketball too, and the stars, The one thing that I will have to say though, I have to commend these ladies because they went on. And some of them played for their countries, other ones played for the USA, right? And you're looking at it and going over there with those protocols across the country and to come back and still play at a high level, that says a lot. That says a lot.
Yes, I agree with you, Keith, totally. And that's actually was gonna bring up here too. And I was able to go and cover the Phoenix Mercury, the first game when all of these ladies came back from the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
I went out. I can't recall who the Mercury played that game. It was, my gosh, it was fire. They came back. It was the first game back, like I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing them perform at the level that they did.
Mm-hmm.
All the policies, all the protocols, the travel, everything, you name it. Diana Taurasi, she had just recently come back from her injury, from her back,
Mm-hmm.
from her injury there that took her out for a few weeks. Goes to the Olympics, you know, kicks ass there, comes home and plays, and you know it just freaking amazes me how they're able to go ahead and do this. And, they did not play their best, but they still, came out victorious. And from there, it was just fire.
Mm-hmm.
And and they just continue to do what they do. And seeing Diana Taurasi, seeing Brittany Griner, just to name some of these ladies, is just amazing and stupendous. And if you don't see them, if you haven't watched them play, go ahead and do so. And think that, all of these, not only the Phoenix Mercury, but all of these teams that you just said, the Sun, the Aces, because they're, have a tremendous team put together. And I think that's going to be one of the teams that to look out for and keep an eye on, because I think they can probably make it all the way to the finals
Mm-hmm.
with everything that you just laid out, Keith. And is I'm just amazed and I'm so impressed with these ladies. I don't know that I would be able to do what they do. We have the men who was the other way around. They've found out, they finished the NBA finals, like a Devin Booker, for instance, and a day or two later, they're already in the camp, the Olympic camp, and getting ready to play Olympic games.
Mm-hmm.
Is just you just have to have mentality and just have to be a different type of creature to
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do what they do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree.
So who do you see probably making it all the way through? I know we're a little bit of ahead of ourselves, but I always like to ask this and get some predictions in, and maybe making it all the way through the championship game
Now, is this for the WNBA?
for the WNBA.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's going to be the Sun, and I think it's going to be Vegas. I do. Um, I think Vegas is going to win it all. I mean, and I think that Vegas. I think that Vegas is going to win it all because I just think they just have too much talent, too much. I mean, in like each position, and also there are certain teams where you look at them and they're just having that year, like it's like a star type of studded year, and I look at this year as that type of one. You know what I mean? Like everything just seems to
Mhm.
go right for them, you know, and I just look at it, I do.
Yeah. I'm very excited, very intrigued. I will be at the Phoenix Mercury tomorrow. That makes, I believe, their last game of the season. Seeing that Diana Taurasi again, she just, I don't know, she just brings me, chills every time I watch her. But talking playoff schedule, the first round, which is a single elimination game, kicks off is going to be Thursday, September 23rd. There's going to be two games: the number 8 versus number 5. Number 5, which is the Phoenix Mercury. I do know that. Undetermined who number 8 is at the moment. Number 7 and number 6 seeds will be playing as well for that elimination game. Then we go to a second round elimination, single elimination game on Sunday. And then we begin the conference finals, which are going to be the best of five, which then from there are going to lead to the WNBA finals in the best of five. So the action starts September 23rd, this coming Thursday, and will run all the way to October 19th. I don't know what I'm going to do, Keith, because we have now NFL, which is just kicked off week 2. We have the women NBA, WNBA playoffs, here in the schedule commencing here shortly. Then we have the MLB postseason, and then we have football, soccer with all the action that's going on there in the road to the World Cup. Is just so much. I don't know if I can handle that all, Keith.
It's great. It's great. I know, right? It's like,
But not complaining. Great to have sports, right?
Yeah. I know, right? Compared to last year, right? So
Yeah,
this is a fun year. It really is.
it really, really, really is. It's been so amazing, and so many highlights have been tremendous. But I know you have to go, Keith. I just want to thank you for coming on and joining me this hour today on a Saturday. But before I let you go, let our awesome people know where they can go ahead and find you and where they can find your work.
Okay, you can find me on Enquire.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. You can follow me on Instagram at Pompey on Sixers. And you can listen to my podcast, Locked on 76ers. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts at.
Okay, awesome. Yes, I do highly recommend that podcast. And I will be listening in. I know you just released a newer episode, so I haven't had a chance to listen to that, but I will do that later today. You have a lot of great insight, a lot of great stuff, and I love it. And keep doing what you do, Keith. Thank you again, friend, for joining me here today, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Same to you. Thanks for having me on the show. I always enjoy it. I really do. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad that you do. I always enjoy having you. But until next time, I'll go ahead and let you go, and we'll talk soon.
All right. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Always great to have our wonderful guest and great friend, Keith Pompey, just bringing some insight, some NBA talk, and giving us some takeaways there. But before I do let you all go, I do want to go ahead and these last few minutes touch on the MLB postseason and what that's going to be looking like with regards to the policies and the protocols there. MLB is mandating vaccines for non-playing personnel for this postseason. So we do have already a little bit of a hammer coming down with some of these teams. A couple of teams that have let go staff and have been affected by it because they are not vaccinated or they choose not to be vaccinated. And unfortunately, they have left the organization. We do know of other leagues and how they're choosing to go forward with these policies and mandates or non-mandates with NBA and the NFL and what they're choosing to do there. But they are requiring their personnel to be vaccinated, and especially with the postseason and being out on the field specifically. The postseason does kick off October 4, and that would be an elimination game for any tiebreakers that there are. And the American wildcard game is scheduled for October 5th. So they're requiring managers, coaches, athletic trainers, and any other non-playing personnel in order to gain access to the field in any other restricted areas in the postseason. That's for the Athletic, who has released this per their sources. And anyone who is currently unvaccinated and is wanting to retain access, they would have to have a vaccine prior to October 4th. And that's just for that access there. Um, but already a number of teams have already put policies in place. As mentioned, the Nationals have are requiring full-time employees to have a COVID-19 vaccine. Astros also doing the same with requiring full-time employees to be fully vaccinated. So there are policies, these are rolling out. Um, this can can go any which way, and right now we do know that a lot of the personnel and a lot of the players are being vaccinated. Um, I'm just very curious to see how this is going to pan out and what the end result is going to be. Um, we are, we are aware of some releasing personnel due to not being vaccinated and, will not be participating in the postseason. Um, so this is just released in the last several hours and day or two of this information, and it'll just be a developing story and how this unfolds. But very exciting. We have a lot of playoff action, not only with the WNBA, we also have playoff action here postseason with the MLB coming here close in the beginning of October. So we have a lot of action. We have the week 2 of the NFL that just kicked off this Thursday, and excited and to see what is going to come of this week 2. As we know, that was a very many highlights that came out of week 1 and many surprises. Really intrigued with the Cowboys and Chargers game and how that is going to unfold. We know that the Chargers have a great team put together, a great team in place, and can be having a lot of surprises there. We have the surprising Arizona Cardinals that just were dominant on week 1. Is that something that they're going to go ahead and be consistent on and continue to be dominant, as we know how that the season can unfold for them? Season after season can be dominant, and then later on would falter on this in the season and not being as victorious. So they do have tools, they do have a strong team, at least it looks that way in paper. And just a matter of fact, how that is going to look out on the field. With the addition of J.J. Watt, we have Chandler Jones, that phenomenal game that he had this last week 1. So that is, for me, the question at hand: how the Arizona Cardinals will perform this week 2. Is week 1 going to affect them, and is it going to be a positive or a negative, and is that going to roll out in being consistent to week 2? But with that, we are out of time. And thank you, everyone, for joining me on Inside Sports Talk this wonderful weekend day. And make sure that you go ahead and do follow us on Instagram at Inside Sports Net, on Twitter at Inside Sports, add an extra S at the end. Download from wherever it is that you do listen to podcasts, all major podcast platforms. Make sure you tune into us live on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on Facebook, YouTube, TV, and not YouTube TV, excuse me, on our YouTube channel and on Twitter as well. You can follow me, Joanna Rosalie, on both Instagram and Twitter at JRosalie. That is JROSALYE. And don't forget to also join us here on Saturdays at 10 a.m. 11 a.m. 10 a.m. is for Punto Deportivo, for our Spanish sports speaking podcast. You can stream us live, same platforms, Facebook, YouTube channel, and Twitter as well. Download from wherever it is you listen to podcasts, Punto Deportivo. Thank you again for joining this beautiful day. I leave you, and this was Inside Sports Talk. Until next time.